Mercedes in the 90s said, "We'll over-engineer cars that last 30 years." BMW shot back, "We'll over-engineer cars that make people forget about Mercedes in 30 seconds." Today, we're counting down 5 BMWs that went nuclear in the overkilling war. These weren't just cars, they were BMW's bold statement. If it ain't complicated, it ain't worth building. Number 5. BMW Z1 Roadster. Think you've seen plenty of Roadsters in your life? Well, we can guarantee you've never seen anything quite like the BMW Z1. This wasn't just a convertible with a fancy badge. This was BMW's engineering department on a caffeine high, throwing every weird idea they had into a 2-seat convertible. The first thing you notice, the doors. They don't swing out, they don't scissor up. And they definitely don't gull-wing like a DeLorean. Nope, on the Z1, the entire door drops straight down into the body like an elevator, glass and all. You push a button, and lo behold, it disappears into the side sill. It was basically a giant window regulator that just happened to be holding a door. And yes, you could actually drive around with the doors completely down, which basically made the Z1 the world's most expensive go-kart with license plates. Of course, this one decision forced BMW engineers to reimagine half the car. Where do you put the mirrors? You can't stick them on a door that vanishes into the floor, so they bolted them to the windshield frame. Where do you put the keyhole? On the bodywork, because again, no door. And the interior handles? Forget the armrest. They're basically mounted on the floor like some kind of engineering afterthought. And then there are the little touches that make you realize BMW was just showing off. The tiniest sun visors you've ever seen, dome lights in the most random places, between the seats and where the glove box would be. Oh, and speaking of the glove box, BMW decided the most logical spot was behind the passenger seat. Yes, to get your registration out, you had to fold the seat forward and slide it ahead just to reach it. Convenient, right? But BMW didn't stop at the disappearing doors. Oh no, that was just the appetizer. The Z1 also came with removable plastic body panels. Yes, you heard that right. You could literally unbolt the panels and swap the color of your car on a weekend if you were feeling indecisive. One day it's red, the next it's yellow. Basically, the Z1 was the first car that let you cosplay as a Lego set. But underneath that costume change exterior, the Z1 hid some serious engineering flex. It had a semi-monocoque chassis and a multi-link rear suspension that was so advanced, it ended up being used in the next BMW 5 Series. And the engine? A good old 2.5-liter inline-6, the M20B25. Same one you'd find in the BMW E3325i, 168 horsepower. Not exactly earth-shattering, but honestly, horsepower wasn't the point. Of course, this level of over-engineering didn't come cheap. BMW only built about 8,000 of these between 1989 and 1991, each with a price tag of $55,000. Then again, it was never meant to be a mass-market car. It was BMW showing off, proving they could push the limits of design and engineering just because they felt like it. Number 4. BMW 8 Series 850i E31. Did you know BMW blew nearly $1 billion developing the 8 Series? And when the first one, the 850i, launched in 1990, it wasn't just a car reveal. It was BMW shocking the world with a machine no one saw coming. See, the 850 wasn't some half-baked update, it was a clean-sheet revolution. This was jaw-dropping engineering overkill wrapped in a grand touring body unlike anything else BMW had built before. Forget parts bin rating. This car was designed from scratch with computer-aided design, which was cutting-edge tech back in the mid-80s. Even the aerodynamics were obsessively studied, giving the car flush glass, a sleek low-slung nose, and of course, pop-up headlights. Because let's be honest, if your headlights didn't rise dramatically out of the hood, were you even a luxury GT in the 1990s? And under that loom hood, that's where BMW really showed off. The 850i carried the jewel of the whole project. The 5.0-liter M70 V12, smooth as butter, refined like a Swiss watch, and pumping out 296 horsepower with 332 pound-feet of torque. Sure, those numbers don't sound earth-shattering today, but in the early 90s, this was Autobahn royalty. Oh, and most importantly, it boasted a drag coefficient of 0.29, meaning this massive Grand Tourer was slipperier through the air than most sports cars of its time. And despite tipping the scales at over 2 tons, the 850i could sprint from 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and cruise effortlessly at 170 miles per hour. In other words, this was a BMW Grand Tourer that could run with Ferraris and Porsches without panting. And it wasn't just the performance turning heads. The inside felt like another world entirely. Slip behind the wheel, and suddenly you were in the cockpit of a private jet. Dual-zone climate control, heated seats, and power everything came standard. The whole dashboard was tilted toward the driver like BMW was handing you the captain's seat. And for those willing to splash more cash, you could add futuristic toys like a CD changer, an in-car phone, or even one of the earliest GPS navigation systems. Back in 1990, that was sci-fi level luxury. But here's the thing, BMW didn't stop at comfort, because this was the 90s, and over-engineering was basically their brand. The E31 came with drive-by-wire throttle years before anyone else, electronically adjustable dampers, and stability and traction control systems at a time when most rivals were still rocking rear drum brakes. The 8 Series wasn't just advanced. It felt like BMW had time-traveled 20 years into the future and brought the tech back. Of course, all this wizardry came with a price tag that could make your accountant cry, starting north of $70,000 in the early 90s, basically mortgage money. The 8 Series was never destined to be a common sight in driveways. Only around 30,000 were sold. But that exclusivity has only added to its mystique today. For collectors and enthusiasts, the E31 stands as a reminder of what happens when BMW throws the budget out the window and says, "Let's go all in." Before we reveal the final 3, don't forget to hit the like button and comment below which over-engineered 1990s BMW you love the most. Number 3. BMW 7 Series E38. What if we tell you there was a car in the 1990s that was so over-engineered, it made rival luxury sedans feel like budget rental cars? Meet the E38 7 Series, BMW's ultimate 90s flex and arguably one of the most overkill-built sedans of its era. Launched in 1994, the E38 was BMW at the height of its "we can over-engineer anything" phase. It wasn't just a luxury sedan, it was a technological marvel. This was the first car in the world to come with curtain airbags, which BMW politely called the head protection system. Everyone else called it "wow." BMW put a pillow on the roof so your skull doesn't bounce off the window in a crash. Well, within a few years, every other car maker was scrambling to copy it, but airbags were just the start. BMW also fitted the E38 with double-glazed side windows, the kind you'd usually expect in a billionaire's penthouse, not a car. The idea was simple: keep the outside world out. Sirens, honking, construction noise, gone. Of course, those windows were so heavy and complex that replacing them was basically a part-time job for your mechanic. But hey, over-engineering doesn't care about practicality. Oh, BMW wasn't done making your other car makers drop their jaws. The E38 was one of the first cars in Europe with factory navigation. That's right, while the rest of us were still wrestling with fold-out maps that never folded back correctly, the E38 owner was casually following digital arrows on a screen. And because BMW had a flair for the absurd, they also offered a built-in television. And let's not forget the parking sensors, which BMW made standard. Today, that's no big deal. But in the mid-1990s, that was space-age technology. And under the hood, if you ticked the right box, you got the 750iL with a 5.4-liter V12, an engine so smooth it felt like it was powered by melted butter. Did you need 12 cylinders to chauffeur executives to board meetings? Of course not. But did it make you feel like a racing driver every time you pressed the accelerator? Absolutely. And here's where BMW went extra. They even used carbon fiber reinforced plastic in its construction. This was the 90s. Carbon fiber was the exotic material of race cars and spaceships. But BMW thought, why not put it in a luxury sedan? Because when you're over-engineering, moderation is for amateurs. The result? A car that wasn't just luxurious, it was obsessively crafted to be the best. That's why decades later, it's still remembered as one of the finest, most over-engineered BMWs ever made. Number 2. BMW Z8. What if we told you the BMW Z8 Roadster came with a one-of-a-kind promise straight from the automaker itself? A promise so ridiculously unusual, so absolutely outrageous that it sounded like the kind of desperate marketing stunt a failing company pulls to move inventory. Hold that thought, we'll get to it. But first, let's talk about the Z8 itself, because calling this machine just another over-engineered BMW is like calling the Mona Lisa just another painting. This wasn't anything ordinary. This was BMW having a complete engineering breakdown in the best possible way. When it debuted in 1999, the Z8 looked like it had time-traveled straight from the 1950s. And that was no accident. It was designed as a modern tribute to the legendary BMW 507, a roadster so rare and expensive that even Elvis had one. Henrik Fisker, the same guy who'd later design Aston Martins, penned the Z8, and he gave it that perfect mix of retro curves and futuristic flair. It was the kind of car that made Ferrari owners stop and say, wait, did BMW just outstyle us? And the Z8 wasn't just about delicious looks. Oh no, this thing was engineered like a piece of rolling sculpture. So much so that instead of a normal steel frame, BMW gave it a MIG welded aluminum space frame. That's right, aluminum, meticulously welded together so designers could sculpt impossibly smooth curves and keep weight down. It was so expensive and so complex, it was basically a race car chassis hiding under a luxury roadster. Then there were the tail lights. No boring conventional or LED lights here. BMW gave the Z8 neon tube tail lamps. Yes, neon, because apparently regular bulbs weren't forever enough for this car. The idea was that they'd last the entire life of the vehicle without ever needing to be replaced. Of course, under the hood, BMW didn't skimp either. They gave the Z8 an overbuilt 4.9-liter S62 V8, known for being ultra-reliable, 395 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, and a soundtrack that could make BMW enthusiasts cry tears of joy. Paired with a 6-speed manual, it wasn't just a cruiser. It could run from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds and top out at a limited 155 miles per hour without the limiter. Well, let's just say it had no problem hanging with Ferraris of the era. Now back to that crazy promise. BMW told every Z8 buyer that they'd keep a 50-year supply of spare parts, yes, 50 years, to make sure these cars could stay on the road for half a century. Imagine buying a car today and being told, don't worry, we've got your back until 2050. Why? Because the Z8 was a limited production car with the majority of elements hand-built, and at $128,000 new, the Z8 was never meant to be common. Only about 5,700 were sold worldwide. Today, they're million-dollar collectibles, partly because of their beauty, partly because of their over-engineering, but also because BMW made that insane promise and kept it. Number 1. BMW M5 E39. Would you believe it if we told you that in 1998, a sober-looking executive sedan was secretly packing almost 400 horsepower, 4 exhaust pipes, and enough attitude to embarrass supercars? That was the E39 BMW M5, and to this day, it's considered one of the greatest cars ever made. See, BMW didn't want this M5 to shout about its power. They wanted it to whisper. To the untrained eye, it was just another 5 Series. But under the hood? That's where the engineers absolutely went crazy. They dropped in the S62 V8, a 4.9-liter masterpiece with not 1, not 2, but 8 individual throttle bodies, 1 for each cylinder. And just to flex, they didn't even bother with old-school mechanical linkages. Nope, each throttle was controlled by its own little servo motor. Basically, this car had the throttle response of a caffeinated cheetah. No wonder the numbers were extremely wild for the time. 394 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, and a 0 to 60 time of about 4.4 seconds. Keep in mind, this was the late 90s. A sedan doing that was like your accountant suddenly bench-pressing 400 pounds in his 3-piece suit. Top speed? Officially capped at 155 miles per hour because of the German gentleman's agreement. Unofficially, let's just say it could creep past 186 miles per hour if you found a long enough autobahn and the courage to keep your foot down. But the over-engineering didn't stop with the engine. Oh no, the chassis was where BMW's Nerd Squad really went off the rails. The E39 was one of the first production sedans to use aluminum extensively in the front suspension, control arms, knuckles, even the subframe. Why? To reduce unsprung mass. Translation: the wheels and suspension parts were lighter, so the car could react instantly to bumps and corners. That's the kind of detail most manufacturers ignore because it's expensive. BMW just shrugged and said, build it anyway. The result was magical in every way possible. This car could carve corners like a sports car, but still glide down the highway like a luxury limo. 1 minute, you're chauffeuring the kids to soccer practice. Next, you're blowing past Porsches while listening to Coldplay. And here's the kicker. The engine wasn't just fast, it was durable. Properly maintained, the S62 could last 300,000 miles on original internals. That's practically immortal in performance car years. Step inside, and the over-engineering vibe continued. The interior was businesslike but beautifully crafted, with everything angled toward the driver. No gimmicks, no screens trying to distract you, just leather, wood, and buttons that actually felt satisfying to press. If we're talking about the pinnacle of BMW in this era, era, it has to be the E39 M5. It was born in a time when engineers called the shots, not the sharp-suited accountants. It was over-engineered not because it had to be, but because BMW wanted to prove they could build the best sports sedan in the world. We hope you enjoyed this video. Here's another one you won't want to miss. As always, thanks for watching.